Okay, it's December 14th and we're well on our way to finishing this beautiful Christmas stocking that we've been working on. You will have finished your heel in the last section, and now it's time to get back to working in the round on the remainder of your stocking. I wanted to just show you, I know it's an important note in your pattern, but just in case you were a little bit confused by it, if you were working on the shadow knit component of your stocking, you will find that you have one strand of yarn that's ready to work on this end of your heel. The other strand of yarn is stuck down in the middle of your heel. So that yarn, the one that is left back at your beginning point, you can cut and just tuck back into your heel, and we'll rejoin it as you go along. So here I am on the right hand side of my heel, and I've got my color that I had tucked inside my stocking, and I know what line of patterning I'm on. So I'm just going to work with my circular needle and my double pointed needle to continue working across that round as you go. So let's just do that. When I get to the end of my first circular needle, that will be the point at which I had my beginning of the round marker. So I'm going to put that back into play here. And when you get to the end of the first double pointed needle, you will have completed a round in your pattern, and you'll need to start the next round of your pattern. Oh, I'll use this really fancy snowflake, and now I can see which round of patterning I was on. Okay, so for me that's 9 pearls. And then 9 knits. And I just wanted to show you that when you get to the end of the heel here, you will have one more double stitch. So you're just going to knit it by knitting into both strands of that double stitch. And again, in my case, I'm going to put another stitch marker on here to mark my pattern. And away you go. So it's just back to that pattern that you had started on, what day was that? The pattern that you had started on December the 7th. You're going to carry on with that one for approximately another 2 inches. All right, keep going. I've completed my 2 inches past my heel. Maybe just a tad bit more. No, 2 inches, pretty much right on the nose. And I've pretty much run out of one of my yarns anyway, so I think this is a good time to stop and move on to section 4.2, where you choose between doing some color work and doing another non-color work option. So I've decided on this stocking, because it's mostly been non-color work, that I'm going to, or non-stranded color work, that I'm going to do a little stranded color work component here. So I just wanted to remind you that if you were moving from straight knitting to color work knitting, that you should change your needle. So I'm going to do that here, and I just want to remind you how to do that. So I take off my marker because it won't stay on anyway. I pull the right hand needle so that the stitches are nice and crowded on my left hand needle, and I pick up my new larger needle that I'm going to work with, new in the sense that I haven't been working with it for a while, and I'm just going to knit the stitches from the 4mm onto the 4.5 millimeter. So I'm going to pick a chart here. I think I will try the cabled strands pattern, and that begins with one row of the background color. So in my case, that's going to be the yellow. And so I just pick up my needle that I want to knit onto, stick it into the stitch, find my yarn and loop it over the needle, pull that stitch through, adjust the tail so that it's not too long, and work with the tail that's attached to the ball. This is the new color of Epic that I received today, and so it's nice to add just this really bright touch of a, what is this, the fourth color? 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. A nice little bright touch of color into the foot of the stocking. The foot of the stocking is designed to be smaller in a sense than a regular stocking, because I find sometimes when you get it loaded up, the foot of the stocking tends to sag. So it's my personal preference to have a foot that's a little bit smaller proportionally than the rest of the stocking. But of course you have lots of yarn now, and if you'd like to make your stocking longer, you can do that. So the point here that I just wanted to remind you of is that when you go to change needles, you simply work from one needle onto the one that onto your next needle. All right, I've worked my way around the round. I'm going to put my beginning of the round marker on, and my new pattern repeat is a multiple of 4 stitches. So I've taken my old stitch markers off that were for my previous pattern, and I'm going to put them back on. I think maybe I'll put them on every 12th stitch or so. So my new pattern calls for 2 colors. I'm going to put one color in my right hand and one color in my left, and my new pattern has me work 2 stitches in my, what is this, color A or color B, I can't remember. I think it's color B. Two of those ones, one of my new color, one of my old color, and then again I repeat that pattern. So just as a quick recap, when you're working with 2 colors, I like to work with one in each hand. To make the stitches in your left hand, you insert the needle, take it over top of the yarn and pull it forward. I'm going to do that again, pull it forward. And now I'm about to make a stitch with the color in my right hand, so I need to make sure that I don't pull this strand too tight. So I bring the yarn around, throw it around the needle, bring it through, and make sure that my strand is nice and loose across the back of those 3 stitches. So basically what I have here is a pattern repeat of 3 grays, 1 white, 1 yellow, and I'm going to place a marker every 12 stitches where the repeat happens. I think that's here. Let's just see if I'm correct. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So I'll put a marker in. That marker is just there so that when I look down at the pattern, I know that I'm starting my repeat every time I hit a marker, and I should be ending the repeat when I get to the stitch before the marker. And that's just a way of making sure that you haven't missed a stitch in your pattern repeat. All right, carry on. I'm now working on option B of section 4.2 on the foot of my stocking for December the 14th. As you may recall, I used not the wrong color, but I used the color that I wasn't supposed to use in the foot of my stocking. So now here on the trim of my section, I'm using the alternate color. So if your colors are reversed, don't worry about that. That's just me not reading the instructions very well, and that's me using my own design elements. But I wanted to show you that I see that in the chart I've gone immediately into 2 knits, 2 purls, which is what the chart is. And of course that's pulled up that yellow color into the red row that's here. If you, and I kind of think that looks cute, so I'm leaving it just the way it is. But if you wanted to do it differently, if you wanted this, those first 2 rows of straight work to be more solid, like it is here. This is another one that I did. The trick here is to work the first row of your new color in all knits. So on the chart, on row 3 here, you would ignore the purl bumps and just knit all those yellows, and then you can carry on from row 4 exactly the way it is. And you can finish row 12 here because the purls are in the bottom row and the knits are on the top row. So it's when you purl on top of a knit that you pull that color up from the row below. So if you substitute this with just a plain row of all knits, that will resolve that issue for you. But I kind of think it looks nice, and so I'm just going to leave it exactly the way it is. So this is kind of a diagonal rib in a sense. You're doing 2 knits and 2 purls, which we sort of associate with ribbing. But in this case, each knit or each purl combination is offset by 1 stitch. And so you can tell where you are in the pattern by looking at your stitches. So if I wanted to carry on in this pattern and maybe I want to make this strip wider than it is, what I can see on my needles here is that I have 1 knit and 2 purls. So to carry on in the pattern, I would like to move those purl stitches over by 1. So I want to knit on top of the first purl, which means I would do 2 knits and then 2 purls, and that will put 1 purl on top of the second purl and the second purl on top of a knit stitch. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, don't worry. You can just follow the chart, and you can repeat the chart a few times if you'd like to. So where am I in the chart? I've just finished my round. I've moved my round marker over, and this is another technique that I told you about in an earlier video. The way that I keep track of my rows is to use a second marker to tell me how many rows I've finished. So if I were to count now from my beginning of the round marker to this green marker over here, it says to me that I've done 2, 4, 6, 8 rows or rounds. So I must be on the 9th round. And if I look at my chart at the 9th round, it does fit exactly into the pattern, moving all of my knit and purl stitches over by 1 to keep that diagonal round going. When I get to my marker, I remove it, I knit the 9th stitch to indicate that I'm working on the 9th round, and I carry on. So that's a way of counting your rounds without having to use a pen and paper or a row counter. I'm just notoriously bad at remembering to write things down, but when I come to that marker, it's quite easy to move it over. And then I can just eyeball this and make sure that I'm on the correct path. I always will have 1 knit above a knit, and then a knit above a purl, 1 purl above a purl, and then 1 purl above a knit. I know that sounds really confusing, but once you get the hang of it, you are freed from the chart and you don't need to use it anymore. And you can make this little strip in your stocking as narrow or as wide as you like. So you're going to carry on finishing off this little insert in your foot, and when you're done, you're going to put down your needles, have a glass of eggnog, and wait for the next section. See you in a few days.